Hi, I'm Kurt Burbick. As you can see, a deck is a place for entertaining. Tracy and I spend lots of time out here with our friends. It's a real social center. Today's show is about deck construction, and we'll be taking you through the step-by-step processes of building your own deck. More and more people are making the decision to do their own work, and they're finding with proper tools and instruction that it's not that difficult. My friends Robert and Avian have decided to build themselves a deck, and I'll be advising them. And although their deck is a much simpler one than this, it serves to demonstrate all the principles of deck construction. Building a deck is a perfect project for a beginner. It allows for a large margin of error, and since the deck is out of doors, it doesn't have to be leak-proof or perfectly built. It can be completed in just a few weekends and gives you a valuable home addition at a relatively low cost. Throughout this show, we will be taking you through the process of building a deck step by step. It is our intention to be as thorough as possible, covering everything from building permits to protective finishes. In future shows, we will be covering virtually every aspect of home repair, remodeling, and building. We feel you will not only find these shows informative, but entertaining as well. You may want to get a pencil and paper to take some notes. This is Robert and Avian's house where we'll be building our deck. Now, the position of the deck will be from the corner here, over 12 feet to about this position, and then the deck will extend into the yard 14 feet to this position. We'll have a staircase from the side of the deck down into the yard here, and later, Robert and Avian will install a doorway from the house that'll open onto the deck. The first part of the construction process we get involved in is the installation of what's called the ledger board, which is a 2x8 pressure-treated pine board. Robert and Avian are now involved in doing measuring layout work to find the location where we can drill holes in the board so we can install what we call a steel lag screw so that we can bolt the ledger board to the side of the house.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to measure for our holes for our bolts. I'm measuring in 12 inches from the end. I'm making a mark, then I'll score a line across the board since we'll be placing two holes, 2 inches from either side of the board. Now we know where to drill.
What I'm doing now is measuring this ledger board for its final cut and then marking it at that cut line, and then I'm going to score across it with my square here so I make sure I've got a good square to the board cut going. And then finally I'll be cutting this with my power circular saw here, and this will be the final length.
Now that we've drilled the holes in the ledger board, we're going to hold the ledger board up against the house and mark those corresponding holes on the side of the house. We'll pull the board away and then drill those holes. So in order to do this, we need 2 lines on the side of the house. A top line marked in the house here represents the finished floor level on the inside of the house. We measure down from that 2 inches, which will be the line that'll be the top of the ledger when we place the ledger on here. Now, the reason for the 2-inch space is because we're going to nail 1.5 inch thick deck boards on top of this ledger so that the finished level of the deck will then be 1/2 of an inch below the finished level of the house inside. So, Robert, you're going to hold this ledger up here and nail it in for us. It's critical that the lag screws are aligned so that they will penetrate some solid framing, either the joists or the studs behind the siding.
All right, let me put the level on it. Okay, you got to go down a little bit, Adrian. A little bit more. A little bit more. Okay, right there. Nail it. I'm holding it.
It's important to double check to make sure that the ledger is level, and then somebody with a felt tip pen can mark the holes on the side of the house. Then we'll pull the ledger off and drill the holes. Okay, it appears to be level. We're ready. We can mark the holes and pull the ledger off and do the drilling. All right, now that we've got all our holes drilled and we took the ledger off the wall, we can put these lag screws through the holes we had drilled in the ledger and apply the ledger to the wall. Now, one of the most important issues in applying the ledger is that there be a space between the building and the back face of the ledgers so that rainwater running down the building will run behind it and not cause a damp space which could cause deterioration later on. So to get that space, we're going to take galvanized steel washers, put them over the shanks of the lag screws, and then when we bolt this onto the building, we'll have a built-in space to work with.
But Kurt, we've got this shingle here, so it comes at an angle. How should we compensate for that?
Okay, that's right. Well, you put a different number of washers on the bottom than you put on the top, so you'll create a different thickness. Why don't we try 4 big washers on the top, and we'll try 3 of the smaller washers on the bottom. Then when we bolt the ledger up there, we will have compensated for the slope in the shingle.
That's good.
All right,
Okay.
now just one more thing. Before we put this on the building, we should put a gob of silicone caulk in every one of these holes. So again, we're trying to stop the water from running down and going through the hole into the side of the house.
Okay, I'll put in some of this.
All right.
Just kind of pack the hole with it.
Yeah.
Can we tap these
Yeah.
in with a hammer
Yeah,
some?
that's the thing to do. Just
How far in?
until they're up snug and firmly in the hole. Actually, you can drive them in a couple of inches. It doesn't hurt them at all. It's the last inch and a half of thread that counts. So I'll just follow you up, Robert, by tightening these things down.
That's pretty good.
Just to be safe, paint the exposed end of the ledger with a good waterproofing product to protect the exposed end grain.
There, that's got it.
All right, but guys, in the case of this deck, the most important issue is going to be design, and let's think about some of the elements we've got here. Here's your house in plan. Your property lines are real close on both sides, but we've got good sun orientation to your backyard because the sun comes up over here, its southern arc swings along this side of the house, and particularly since the kitchen is located in this back end of the house, it would be a very logical place to start thinking about putting our deck right here. It takes advantage both of beverage and food service from the kitchen and good sun through most of the day. Now, another thing is the size of the deck, and we have to think about some of the activities that are going to go on there. I know you want a table and chairs and a barbecue, so probably, and we are also limited by the location of this tree that's right here. So if we come full from the back of the house to the tree, we will probably be able to fit a deck in of about 14 feet off the back of the house. We're restricted by some plumbing along here in the corner of the house to the width of being about 12 feet. So we're probably going to end up with a design of about 12 feet by 14 feet on this deck. So if you can also relate to the access along the side in terms of getting onto your deck, that would lead us to thinking about putting a staircase down this side of the deck along here. And that'll also give you a chance when sitting on the deck to get nice views out into this direction. So I think this particular location and shape make pretty good sense for in trying to get to a solution of this design problem. Just to recap about design then, there are several issues you want to think about at the planning stages. What kind of activities will you use your deck for, and therefore how big will it have to be? Where will the deck be located? Think about items like sun exposure, views, privacy. A deck can act as an extension of the interior space of the house, and you might want to have it just outside the kitchen, making it easy to serve food and beverages. Now for the question of building permits. You should obtain a copy of your city's code requirements for decks. Most codes will specify things like setback distance from property lines, concrete footing specifications, railing heights, size and spacing of deck framing and decking materials, baluster spacing for safety, size, and permits for electrical wiring and piping for gas lines. Some building codes require a full set of blueprints for your project, plus a list of specifications. You should be able to draw a suitable plan yourself on drafting paper. Or you can pay a drafting company to do it for a small fee. Building materials, of course, will have to be obtained. A list of items can be made from your permit drawings, and a good home center or hardware store serving do-it-yourselfers can help you with that. All right, we're really getting into this thing now. The next thing we want to do is nail up a couple of joists, one on each side. Nail one here, temporarily hold it up on the other end, and then do some measurements on both these joists. And after we get them in place, we can measure between them to find the points in the ground. But there's some important things here to think about. We've got the end grain of a piece of ledger here that we really want to cover up. So what we'll do with this joist is we'll hold it up over this end grain and nail into it here. Once we get that in place, Robert, you can be holding up the other end, and we'll take the framing square and check the squareness of the joist. Then you can drive the stake in and we'll temporarily tack the joist in place. All right, we're going to use this carpenter's framing square to check this angle to get it 90 degrees or approximately 90 degrees. So Robert, you can then, well, you can either do it that way or it's probably better to back it up against the board like this. And then sight down here and when it gets square.
Maybe I should do it like this.
Well, either way.
Okay, bring it in more.
Right there?
That's good.
Even you get a level.
A little more. Oh, too much. Okay.
Right there?
Looks good.
Okay.
All right, so this idea with the 3-4-5 triangle is a good way to check this 90-degree angle, but because we have a particularly long piece of wood, why don't we double the sides of that triangle and make it 6 foot, 8 foot, and 10 foot. Then when we get that laid out, it'll be a good check in terms of determining this 90-degree angle. So
well, let me get this straight. So if we come out this way 6 feet and this way 8 feet and mark it and measure between the two marks, when it gets to be 10 feet, this is a right angle.
Right. All right, let's take a look at why we set up these two outside joists on our deck. What we want to do next is determine the point where our concrete pier blocks are going to go that are going to hold up the deck structure. So we use these two outside joists to do that. We know in our drawing that our concrete footings are 11 feet away from the house. So Avian and Robert will measure out from the house 11 feet, set a nail in the top of each joist, and then we'll take a linen string, stretch it across from one side to the other, and measure in 2 feet, which again is the location of the pier footings from the outside of the deck, and with a felt tip pen put a mark on the string, and then we can drop a plumb bob from the string down to the ground. That'll give us a point in the ground that represents the center of the hole for our concrete supports.
That's the center of the hole.
Okay, let's talk about concrete foundations for a minute. For a deck, it's a way to get the weight of the deck into the ground so that the deck doesn't settle. The way we accomplish that is by digging a hole in the ground that's about 16 inches in diameter and about 12 inches deep. What we do at that point is we mix up some wet concrete, and we do that by buying dry mix in a bag, and we simply put that into a wheelbarrow, add some water, mix it up. We pour then the wet concrete into the ground, and on top of that we place a precast concrete pier block. We nestle that pier block down into the wet concrete. We check the levelness of it in 2 directions, and then we give a few hours for that concrete to set up, and we start building the wooden deck on top of it. Now, in some parts of the country where you have concerns about cold weather and frost line, the hole may have to go considerably deeper into the ground, all the way up to maybe 42 inches, depending on what part of the country you're in. Another concern about foundations is where you have to deal with earthquake conditions. When that happens, local codes frequently require that a metal connector, which is precast and set into the concrete block, hooks the wood to the concrete so that in earthquake the wood can't come loose from the foundation. Well, we have our hole already dug, we have our concrete mix, so we're going to go ahead and pour this, set the pier block, and we'll be ready to then start building our wooden deck on top of it.
I'm going to plop this right down in the middle.
Okay.
Settle
Kind
it
of
down.
parallel with the line. You know, the top's kind of parallel.
Flip it around a little bit. I'm going to press it into the concrete. It looks like it.
Okay.
A little bit.
That,
I'm gonna
you
go-
can't tap it with it. Okay, that's good, that direction.
Needs to go, whoops,
That direction there.
that direction. Wait a minute.
That's good. I can't tell. That's good. That's good. That's got it.
Okay, what kind of material do we use to build a deck? Maintenance is a primary consideration in selecting both species and finishes. Redwood and cedar are both woods that weather well and have a natural resistance to insect and moisture damage. So for the exposed portions of the deck itself, deck furniture, stairs, and handrails, we could use redwood or cedar, but we'll select redwood for its beauty, ease of handling, and natural durability. Now, chemically pressure-treated woods like fir and pine are both strong and economical. So we can use fir, pine, or redwood for the beams and girders, depending on local availability. Now, the next step will be installing our girder. As you can see, I've moved the string from the top to the bottom of the joist so that I can measure and cut my 4x4 post. Okay, now we can get this girder in place, set it across the footing.
That's
right.
Where's our mark? You want to...
You want to measure out from the wall and make sure
it's got to go back that direction, about 2 inches, inch and there. The post should be in the center of the footings, right? Approximately.
Do we want
to? Right, how are we looking?
Measure out?
Yeah, let's measure out from the wall and make sure it's a... What distance you want?
11
Measure
feet.
the top
Okay,
of the
we want
girder.
11 feet.
Okay. Hold at the top of the girder there, Amy.
Pardon?
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to center it on the footing, even though it's... Okay, there, that's
Okay,
11
that's
feet.
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to mark it?
You want to mark the other side?
Let's go over here.
Okay,
You've
11
got
feet,
11
right on the
feet
nose.
Okay.
Our girder is made out of two 2x8s, bolted one on each side of a 4x4 post, which goes to the concrete pier footing, so that the entire weight of the deck is supported through the joist system, onto the girder, through the post, and into the ground. We're going to install the rest of our joists now. Avian is doing the layout work, and she's going to mark with her carpenter's square along the face of the ledger. And we'll be installing steel joist hangers that will hold the joists in place. There are these metal saddle shapes. You lay it up against the ledger with the bottom flush with the bottom of the ledger, and you nail in one side of the joist hanger with these special joist hanger nails. You then place the joist in position, then pull the other side of the joist hanger up against the joist, and then nail in the second side of the joist hanger, and we'll do that at each position along the ledger. And after this, we'll nail galvanized sheet metal strips over each joist to protect the wood structure from moisture deterioration.
Okay, this side goes down.
All right, now the exciting part begins. We're going to start nailing on the deck boards. For the first board, pick a nice straight one, and remember that gap between the house and the construction so the water can run behind it. Nail the first board down with the end flush with the deck over here. Let it run wild on the other end, so when we've got all the boards nailed in, we can take a circular saw and buzz them off with a nice clean cut.
Okay, this is
Control the
probably pretty
spaces
bad.
between the
You can pull
deck
it
boards
back.
using either a flat carpenter's pencil or a 16-penny nail. Also be sure the fasteners are hot dip galvanized for rust resistance.
Well, let's check out and see how we're doing from the wall.
What do you got?
19 9 16ths.
My goodness, we're on the button.
All right, let's keep going.
Often when you have to nail close to the end cut of a board, like here at this joint between these two planks, the nail will tend to split the wood. To avoid doing that, drill a pilot hole, which is to say use a drill that's a little bit smaller than the shank of the nail, and then when you nail the nail in that pilot hole, the board won't split. Okay, we're getting there. We've got one more board to nail down, but before we do that, now's our chance to measure out from the last board we nailed to a point on the joist. We'll mark it with our carpenter's square. We'll cut the joist so that when we nail the last plank down, we'll have a perfect alignment between that last board and the end of the joist. All right, we're ready to cut off the boards that we left running wild on this end of the deck, and we do that by snapping a chalk line before we use our power saw to cut the boards. Now, I must bring the line of the face of the joist up to the top of the deck right here, extend that line around the corner so we'll have something to lay our chalk line on. Having done that, I can set the chalk line on it, and Avian down at the other end will pull it tight and give it a snap.
Okay, let's put the band on. All right. It looks good. Looks real good here. How's it look down there?
I got a great fit.
Okay. Nail it in. Flush to the top. Got it.
Here are some of the tools you'll need for this project. I'd like to talk to you a moment about safety. And if you'll pardon the pun, safety is no accident. Protect your feet with a proper pair of construction boots, high-topped, thick-skinned, and heavy-soled. And keep a first aid kit on the job, and a pair of gloves for those special times when you'll need to protect your hands. And safety goggles are intended to protect your eyes. Always wear them when using your power saw. And your power equipment should always be either double insulated or grounded, which means where you plug them in, it should be into a 3-pronged electrical outlet. And in general, take it easy around the job and don't rush. Most construction site accidents happen either at the end of the day when people are tired or when people are in a hurry.
Okay.
I'll measure in from the corner.
All right.
1, 3, 8, 4, 8. Okay. Now, if you hold it up, then I'll
So you clamp it. Okay, you ready? How's that looking? All right, I got the railing. You need to come up about 1/8 of an inch.
Okay, let me get the clamps.
You're way high.
Your project is not fully completed until you have taken the proper steps to protect your new addition. One of the best ways of protecting the wood and extending the life of your deck is to use a waterproofing material which will help prevent the costly effects of moisture damage. By using a clear waterproofing product to seal the surface, water can be kept from penetrating into the wood. And with this additional protection, your deck should provide years of enjoyment.
Not bad.
Now we're finally completing our deck. Robert and Avian, as you can see, have built this handrail. Now, if your deck is within 30 inches of the ground, you won't even need one, but we've decided we want one on our deck. And there are many handrail designs, some with seating and planters, but ours is an attractive and a simple one. It's all redwood. It has a 2x4 top rail, which by code must be 36 inches from the deck surface. And the picket should be placed so that there's no larger than a 6-inch space. And for stability, we bolt the whole thing together with 1/4 inch by 2.5-inch lag screws, 2 at the bottom into the rim joist. And notice how the end cuts of both the rim joist and the handrail are miter cuts so that there's no exposed end grain. This has been a real enjoyable project, and Robert and Avian have only taken a couple of weekends to complete it. And now that they've built their deck, they can do some entertaining outside. And with proper care and construction, this deck will give them many, many years of enjoyment. Thanks for joining us today, and stay tuned for more do-it-yourself projects. I'm Kurt Burbick.